Reports in the last 24 hours suggest that Daniel Kretinsky wishes to purchase David Gold's shares of West Ham United for £150 million. Now currently, as it stands, David Gold's estate owns 25.1% of the football club, whilst Kretinsky still owns 27% after his investment in November 2021 for just under £170 million. But if the Czech Sphinx was to acquire David Gold's shares, that would give him a total of 52.1%, becoming the majority shareholder of West Ham United. Now, just for a little bit of clarity, these reports haven't come from one of my favourite sources when it comes to West Ham news. We all have our own individual favourites. You guys know who mine is. Jacob Steinberg, ex-West Ham employee, Sean Whetstone, The Athletic. Roshane does the reporting for West Ham over in The Athletic, but them is an outlet. And John T from Football London too. I think they're my favourite sources when it comes to West Ham news these days. I've got my generic ones as well for all things football. I've got Darmesh. We've got David Ornstein at The Athletic. I think he's really, really good. Percy, I've got my favourites for generic, but when it comes to West Ham, that's who I like to listen to the most, and these reports haven't come from them. It started with one outlet, and other outlets have started to pick it up and run with it, adding a little bit to it each time as they go. And we're no different. Me and Gonzo are no different. We keep our eye out for what's been said in the West Ham world, what the West Ham news is, and we make videos about it, telling you guys what the news is, what the reports are, giving our thoughts on it, and getting your thoughts in the comments below, and that's what I'm doing today. So the reports are: Daniel Kretinsky wishes to purchase David Gold's estate shares of 25.1% of the football club for £150 million. Now, there's been a lot of talk regarding ownership. Well, it has been since we moved in really to the London Stadium, but certainly in the last month it's starting to heat up, and there's a lot of moving cogs going on here. But it's going to get more and more prominent because that embarrassment clause is coming to an end. Embarrassment clause was worded by Boris Johnson when West Ham signed a tenancy agreement with the LLDC for the London Stadium, and within that tenancy agreement there is clauses which, if West Ham were to change hands, if the owners was to change, and David Sullivan and David Gold were to make a profit on their shares, they had to give X percentage to the government. That depended on when they sold the club, it depended on how much they sold the club for, how much profit they made. There was a lot of different factors, and it was changing a lot. It was a big sliding scale. So for example, when Kretinsky purchased 27% of the football club back in November 2021, because it was done in two transactions and the way it was done, and the fact that Sullivan and Gold both personally benefited by selling shares directly to Daniel Kretinsky, they had to give 2.5 million in total to the government because of that transaction. That clause ends in the next couple of weeks. It's gone. So in theory, this time in April, West Ham could go to a complete new owner and no profits are given up. The clause is coming to an end after 10 years. And as a result of that, I think we're going to see more and more reports like this in the coming few weeks and months. And why wouldn't we? It just makes sense. I think there's an expectancy to be a change of ownership at West Ham United, especially if we retain our Premier League status. And my opinion falls into this category. I think for there to be a change of ownership, I think we need to be a Premier League club next season. If we get relegated, I'm not convinced we'll see David Sullivan sell up, but we'll wait and see. But I think these reports are going to keep coming along because that clause will be gone in a couple of weeks' time. And it's been the beliefs of many West Ham fans since day one that this was always the plan of David Sullivan and David Gold when they first acquired West Ham, that the plan would be to move us into the Olympic Stadium and then to sell us on for a profit at the end of it. And there was evidence to back up these claims, these thoughts. 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, these were the thoughts and worries of West Ham fans, and the evidence was just exactly what they did at Birmingham City, or exactly what they tried to do. They tried to get a stadium on the taxpayers' money at Birmingham City. It didn't work. They rocked up at West Ham. They got that stadium that they wanted, and there's always been a belief that come the end of the 10 years, once that clause has expired, they'll sell up, pocket the profit, and ride off into the sun. Is it sunny in Cardiff? I'm not sure. But we'll have to wait and see. But so far, those beliefs, in my opinion, have been proven correct by the fact that David Sullivan is still here just 2 weeks short of that clause expiring. I think if you have a prediction and, 10 years later, that prediction is still on course, I think you've done quite well. I think you've got an element of truth in your prediction at least. But time will tell. If they sell up in the next 15 months or whatever, then I would suggest that those beliefs have always been correct, that was the plan all along. But Nevertheless, because of that clause expiring, I think these reports are going to get more and more. Now, on the other hand, last week the Times reported that Daniel Kretinsky has no intention of purchasing further shares of West Ham United whilst their Premier League status remains uncertain. Now, this is what I'm believing. I believe that article, because why would Kretinsky purchase more shares today at a price agreed when West Ham were in European football? Never mind Premier League, we were a European football side and we agreed the share price. Why would he purchase them then, those shares at that price, when we could get relegated and be in the Championship next season? It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. This isn't a West Ham fan getting involved because of the love for the football club. That's not what's happening here. This is a shrewd businessman probably trying to get richer. That's the reality of it. What is Kretinsky's involvement in West Ham? Why is he involved in West Ham? Probably to make a profit. He's probably just doing what David Sullivan and David Gold intended to do on day one as well, just on a larger scale, and probably on a more, how should I word this, more patiently, because his involvement with West Ham so far has been minimal. Are we aware of any involvement? Not that I don't know any. And this is where, in regards to an opinion on West Ham being sold in the summer, I think if we stay in the Premier League, I would expect it to. But that's because of my beliefs in what David Gold and David Sullivan intended to do when they first purchased the club, not because of what I believe Kretinsky wants to do. In regards to Kretinsky, I don't really have a strong opinion. Obviously, I've never heard of him when he first came into West Ham. Since then, I've still heard very little. Whenever Kretinsky pops up in these articles, I try and read them. It's never relating to West Ham. It's relating to him trying to buy more shares in the Royal Mail. He's been getting involved in the energy business in the UK in the last month or so ago as well. So I've been trying to keep an eye out to see what Kretinsky's up to. But in regards to the football perspective, there's very, very little evidence he's been involved in anything at West Ham since he's purchased 27%. Obviously, he's got Sparta over in Czech. When our Czech West Ham fans in the comments always speak about Kretinsky, he's never in glowing endorsements. They're not big fans of him and what he's done over there. And when he rocked up at West Ham, he did one very brief interview, and that was it. And in that brief interview, it was very much keep your feet on the ground stuff. And because we were doing so well at the time, I naively was okay with it. He said, January coming up, don't expect us to be spending any big money. I believe in the evolution of the football club. Let's get this club on a solid foundation, build from there. We've got social and society responsibilities at the football club, which is what I'm looking to do, etc. And I read it, all starry-eyed. I thought, this sounds really good, Mr. Kretinsky. I'm looking forward to this. But now I read it and I see it differently. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this guy's not pledging any money to the club, or he's not got any big plans for the club or anything. And it was a very generic, I was going to say spiel. Is that fair? That's how I feel today. When I read it back before doing this video, and when I read it, I thought this is just a statement of nothing really. It's just a load of cliches and phrases to appease us all. But it worked on me back then because I was all happy. We were playing European football. I was excited. I was enjoying it. But now I look at it. So my opinion on Kretinsky as a West Ham fan from a footballing perspective, I don't really have one. A strong one, that is. So do I expect him to purchase more shares of West Ham? I don't really know, to be honest with you. Possibly not. Gonzo's always been convinced he wouldn't. And when you look at his blueprint in terms of what he has done, the guy owns partly owns 50 companies, and it's minority shares in blue chip companies. It's not really, West Ham doesn't really fit that. So I'm probably inclined to agree with Gonzo in the regards that I don't really expect Kretinsky to become the major shareholder at West Ham, or certainly not 100% of the football club. So what is his intentions here? Well, like I said, probably to make money. And the only way owners at West Ham make money is by selling the club at a larger price than they bought it for. It's simple mathematics, because the owners at this club don't get paid a salary, they don't get dividends, they can only make money by selling the shares at a greater price. There was rumours a couple of months ago, that he had met Lynn Gardner at the LLDC in regards to potentially purchasing the London Stadium. Now, when those reports came out, it wasn't really certain as to whether he was looking to purchase it for himself under his own company, or whether he was looking to acquire it for West Ham United. Nevertheless, those reports were followed up by other reports saying that those were not true. That because the first set, which implied there was a meeting, relied on Kretinsky being at the game against Chelsea when we drew against Chelsea. That Kretinsky was there, and whilst he was there, he had these secret meetings with Lynn Gardner, and they've since then said that Kretinsky wasn't at the game, and there certainly hasn't been any meetings. But you do wonder that if Kretinsky was to get involved at any point in larger ownership at West Ham United, that the London Stadium and or its surrounding land would probably have a big impact on whether Kretinsky got involved or not, because that stadium has always been the thing, hasn't it? Pi Capital, we all know what we think about Pi Capital, but a large part of their bid to get involved at West Ham was based around the London Stadium and what they wanted to do with the London Stadium and what they could do in regards to revenue. So with Kretinsky, it would make sense if that London Stadium was a big part of whether Kretinsky got involved or not. So what happens with David Gold's shares, we'll have to wait and see. The reports are that Kretinsky wants them. I do think it must rely on us staying in the Premier League. So if we get relegated, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure we will see too much movement on the ownership front, because it would require Sullivan to sell them for a lesser price, probably sell his shares for a lesser price. But anyway, that's the reports from various different outlets at the minute. That's constantly snowballing. But Kretinsky wishes to purchase David Gold shares for 150 million. As for myself, to summarise, I don't believe it just yet. I don't believe it at all. How can we, when we don't know what league we're going to be playing in next season? And until that comes to a conclusion, I'm not sure the ownership can come to a conclusion. You lot that have stuck around thought, hey, it's back on, what's your way to talk about now? You're gonna wish you didn't, because I want to have a moan. I've got the right hump. Do you know last week Gonzo did a whole video dedicated to disclaimers, and I thought it was a bit too far, but I could get it because I could understand his frustration. Oh, I've got the hump about not having. When I was doing this video, do you know when I spoke about the source of the reports, and it was like, for clarity, blah, I almost kept going. I thought, no, I'm going to stop myself, because the funny thing about disclaimers, I hate them. I hate doing them. I hate starting the video with a disclaimer to say, just as a reminder to everybody. I don't like it. The video is 15 minutes long, disclaimer is 1 minute. I don't want a 1 minute disclaimer. I just want to crack on with the topic and the topic only. But unfortunately, you feel like you have to do them. Now I've got two examples in the last week. There's basically more in the last 24 hours where I'm having to tell people what you assume I've said. I've not actually said it. You're just assuming I think something and you're incorrect. But anyway, so there's two classic examples in the last week, and I'm going to share them and have a rant. You're getting in the neck. So when we beat Forest 4-0 last Sunday, did the video, I was happy. 50 minutes of just utter positivity, right? Because I went to the game, I enjoyed my day, I enjoyed the match, etc, etc. So I did a video just really happy. All I did was speak about the game. I didn't once say we're going to stay up now. I didn't once say that's it, Moyes is going to go on and do a fantastic job. Not once did I say we've turned a corner. Quite the opposite. I make jokes about us not turning a corner in the video. Anyway, so the video, I've edited it, it's uploading, and I thought, oh no, I've not done a disclaimer. I've not done a disclaimer. Do you know the funny thing about disclaimer? I hate doing them. The video's 15 minutes long. I don't want to do a minute disclaimer. I don't want to. So I thought, oh, it's going to be fine. Just upload it, and then in the comment section, put a little comment. Put the disclaimer in text format and pin it so it's at the very top of the comment section for everybody. Anyone who enters the comment section to write a comment about an assumption they've made about something I've not said, will see it. So I did that, published it. I kid you not, the second comment, right, and here's the best bit, the video's 15 minutes long, 6 minutes after going live, so at most that guy's watched 6 minutes, which he can't have done because he's typed out a paragraph for me, so about 3 minutes into the video he started typing this, I reckon. Oh, come on, Gio, we beat the worst team in the league, it doesn't mean we're going to stay up in Moyes. What are you talking about? I've not even said that. I've not even implied that. Also, you've scrolled past a bit that says disclaimer in capital letters to grab your attention and explain that I don't think we're going to survive relegation. I'm not saying we'll get relegated. I don't actually know. I don't have a strong opinion on whether we're staying up or not at this point.